세계 경제를 이끄는 경제대국 미국. 하지만 아메리칸 드림은 사라지고 부와 삶의 격차가 갈수록 벌어지고 있죠. 바로 그곳에서 불평등을 연구하는 세계적인 석학들을 만났습니다. 불평등 특집을 찾은 첫 번째 강사입니다. 조지프 스티글리츠. 그는 현대 경제학에 화려한 족적을 남긴 세계적인 학자이자 독설도 거침없이 쏟아내는 경제학계의 이단합니다. 자본주의의 망가진 규칙이 어떻게 불평등을 심화시켰는지 밝혀내고자 했죠. 우리는 과연 게임의 규칙을 바꿀 수 있을까요?
It's hard, but it can work. Hello, EBS viewers. Welcome to Wei Da Han, SUUP, Great Minds. I am Joe Stiglitz, Professor of Economics at Columbia University. Since I began my study of inequality, unfortunately, the levels of inequality have increased enormously. That actually has provided an opportunity to study more closely what was driving these changes at the time that I was studying. There was a widespread belief that while inequality increased in early stages of development, as countries advanced, inequality would decrease. This was an idea that was put forward by Nobel Prize winner Simon Kuznets, and it was called Kuznets' Law. It turned out not to be a law of nature. It turned out not to be correct. It was true in the period that he was studying, and there was a good argument put forward. And then, as we advanced further, those inequalities would be reduced. And we saw that both within Europe and globally. The cities were polluted, those workers struggled. But then, as with progressive legislation to protect workers, with unions, things began to change. And in the United States, we began to think of ourselves as a middle-class society in which everybody had opportunity, in which workers actually lived a reasonably decent life. We paid, unfortunately, little attention to African Americans, to discrimination, to the people at the very bottom, but it was the case that by most measures, inequality had come down. And then at the very moment I began to turn my attention to inequality, it began to soar. And there were a number of forces at play. One of the aspects of this was the growth of monopoly power, market power. A few people who had, say, patents or technological advantages, not only were advancing knowledge, they had learned how to use the market power that patents gave or that their technological advances gave them to increase their income at the expense of everybody else. There was a growth of what we call monopolization, market concentration. One firm that was more successful would buy up other firms. We became a less competitive economy. And what the firms did then was to use their market power to raise prices, essentially lowering the income of ordinary individuals and enriching themselves. We call this process rents. It's like the rents that come from land. It's not because you've done anything particularly, it's because you own the land. And they had this rents coming out of their monopoly power that gave them greater and greater riches. Theory of competition that many economists focused on said that competition would lower profits down to zero. But in fact, what we saw happening in the U.S. economy, especially recently, is that the share of profits have been going up and up and up. And that reflects monopolization. It reflects a couple of other forces. Workers were becoming weaker in terms of their bargaining power. Unionization declined to the point in the private sector, unionization is well under 8% of people, a third of what it was, less than a third of what it was earlier. That raises the question, why was this this increase in market power, and why was there this decrease in the bargaining power of workers? There were several factors that contributed to these changes. One of the most important factors is the way the rules of the economy are written. Well, markets don't exist in a vacuum. We structure the markets by the rules and regulations, the laws. And in terms of market power of firms, we had laws passed at the end of the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century that were intended to break up monopolies and limit monopoly power. But then two things happened. One was, again, we had courts, conservative courts appointed by right-wing politicians that interpreted the laws in ways that gave greater scope for monopolization. And then our technology changed. And our laws did not keep up with the changes in technology. So to me, the way we, what I call rewrite the rules of capitalism, making it more favorable to the rich and less favorable to the poor, is one of the aspects of the growth of inequality.